Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the deep dive sessions sponsored by Geotab. As you know, connectivity and electric vehicles go together like Tarzan and Jane. You can drive an electric car and connectivity without any connectivity, but you probably don't want to. Here is why you should get connectivity service with your EV. Matt Stevens. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how are you, Daniel?
Oh, hello. Matt Stevens is a Vice President EV at Geotab, and he will introduce the latest e-mobility innovations. Before starting the presentation, let me remind you that you feel free to share your questions through the text chat functionality on your right side. As you can see, you are able to share your question, because at the end of the presentation, Ella Canet, in charge for marketing at Geotab, will moderate the Q&A sessions. And now, let's start the presentation. Matt, so the virtual stage is yours.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Daniel. So thanks everyone for joining this morning or this afternoon. What I really wanted to cover, I do want to highlight a couple of the new things we've added within the Geotab offering, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. What I really wanted to cover, because I thought it was most useful for any fleet manager or leasing company looking to expand electrification or e-mobility, are what are the 5 most important questions that you need to ask any telematics system that you're looking to use as you're trying to go electric, whether that's Geotab or something else. So these are the 5 questions that if you get good answers from any telematics system that you're looking at, then you're probably in good shape to go electric within your fleet successfully. And so within that, a couple of things. So I'm quickly going to cover why is fleet electrification important, and what are the biggest concerns we're hearing from fleet managers as they're looking to add more electric vehicles or e-mobility into their fleet. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I've been listening to a lot of the sessions so far today, and a number of them covered that really well. But I am going to quickly touch on it because the 5 most important questions for you to ask a telematics provider directly relate to those, specifically the biggest concerns. And so why, really is climate change and sustainability. We really must act faster. And then when you look, obviously, within the EU, a strong alignment towards reducing carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emissions, and the opportunity to create jobs in line with that. So if you're trying to reduce emissions, this is a global view. You've got transport road emissions being about 12% globally. But if you look in Europe or in North America, where manufacturing and construction doesn't have the same kind of emissions profile, really that transportation component just grows, whether it's 25 or 30%. So where I live, it's just over 30% is road transportation. So if you're trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, there's no way you can do it without electrifying the fleet. So fortunately, the good news is, Stephen did appropriately say earlier that EVs are still not a huge percentage of the vehicles sold, but you can see that it is increasing. And now, we're north of 7 million electric vehicles globally, with about 2 million of those being in Europe. And obviously within Europe, 20 of 27 member countries have pretty impressive incentives for electrification. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I've got a German example there that's quite favorable and certainly helps with electric vehicle or e-mobility uptake. So that's the background. Why electrification? Because of climate change and sustainability. Those are the main reasons. Thomas and Neil spoke earlier about the TCO needs of it. So if you do fast forward a couple of years, you will be spending a lot more to run a combustion fleet than you will an electric fleet. Now, at this point in time, it's a mix. It depends on which vehicles you're switching. Some of them will have a lower TCO on electric, some will not. But the Fleet Europe team did a really great job doing a survey of the fleet managers and the member community to understand what are people thinking about electrification, and why are they doing it, and what are the barriers. And so what you see on the left is, 41% and 31%. So 72% either have it as a very top priority or a priority. So a lot of your colleagues are looking to go electric. Substantial portion are having electrification and e-mobility as a top priority for them. And where are they now? Most actually have EVs, but it's below 5%, and that's what we see globally as well. We work with a lot of fleets right now that are in that 1 to 5% range and are looking to go into the 5 to 10 or 10 to 15. So there's not many fleets that are looking to go 100% right away. As Neil and Thomas said earlier today, that's a difficult proposition in a lot of cases to do that today, but you can certainly electrify pretty substantial portions of fleets successfully today, even if it isn't 100%. So why, the results are pretty clear. Number one is sustainability and environmental targets. Shouldn't come as a surprise given what we just talked about a moment ago, the broader need and desire to go to electric mobility. Second is policy mandates, and then third is more and more, and we're seeing that third row grow pretty rapidly, where when people are getting perk vehicles or benefit vehicles, they really are anticipating that they should be electric. And so we are seeing a big push by employees that are seeking to have their vehicle be electric. Sometimes it's because of the sustainability environmental reason. Sometimes it's pretty basic benefits like being able to be in an HOV lane or having faster commutes or preferred parking. So there's a lot of reasons why employees want to go to electric vehicles. Sometimes it's the taxation benefit as well. And then lower total cost of ownership. Candidly, I was surprised to see that as number 4. I expected to see that as number 2. But again, it's up there, but it really is sustainability driving it. But this is the most important. Everything that I've talked about is really the lead up to this, because the 5 questions you need to ask your telematics provider really relate to this slide. It really is, from those that would be listening to this call right now, what are the biggest concerns? Because you saw in the slide before that they're looking to electrify. They're in that 1 to 5% electric. They want to go more electric, but what are they concerned about? And here's the rank. Number 1 is charging infrastructure. Deploying it, understanding it, trying to minimize the cost of that charging infrastructure. The second is, getting over the purchase price of the EVs, the total cost. The TCO equation is different. It's more front-end loaded than with combustion vehicles. So helping navigate that, especially with the finance department. Then you've got some makes and models. You've got range anxiety from drivers, being able to sit down with the driver and saying, look, we're going to put you in a full electric vehicle. This is why it will meet all of your needs. And Thomas talked earlier about the view around charging sometimes not being as prevalent. And once you operate an EV for a while, the view of a need to have widespread public charging isn't as significant. People get quite comfortable with smaller charging needs than they expected, and that definitely matches what we see as well. Anyway, a couple items down there, but so really this is what you got to keep in mind. The biggest concerns and barriers to electrify, knowing that you and your colleagues want to electrify, but this is what you're worried about. That's where your telematics provider comes in. Will your telematics provider solve all of those? No. But your telematics provider can actually solve a lot of those and really make going electric a lot easier for you. And so here are the top 5 takeaways of what you need to ask a telematics provider. Whether it's Geotab, I would love it if it is, but even if it isn't, here are the questions you need to ask them, because if they give good answers to this, you'll be in good shape to electrify your fleet. Number 1, can you help me electrify? Can you give me a personal electrification plan for my fleet, specific to how I operate my fleet? And so Neil talked earlier about how we do it at Geotab, but there's multiple ways to do it. And the key is to use the data off your existing fleet, your existing combustion-based fleet, to know how the vehicles are being used and to selectively pick the spots where electrification works really well, where it does the job and has a really fantastic total costing. And so, regardless of what the name of it is, it really is, at the end of the day, a personal fleet electrification plan. And really the questions you need to ask are, will the EV have enough range if it does exactly what that petrol or diesel vehicle did? And you have to consider the longest daily route, and you also have to consider when in the year, because climate does matter a fair bit. The weather matters a fair bit for the range of an electric vehicle. Now, fortunately, most telematics systems can give you enough of that data where it's very easy for you to say, okay, well, let me look at it and let me figure out which EVs would have enough range or not, even compensating for temperature. Will it save me money? What is the climate change benefit? And then what kind of charging infrastructure do I need? And really, it may sound like a bit of a stretch, but really your combustion vehicles, your current vehicles, can help you answer most of these questions extremely accurately. And so that really is the key. And so within Geotab, we call that the EV suitability assessment. What it basically does is it takes the data. If you have, if you're using Geotab for your petrol and diesel vehicles, we swallow in the usage data of those vehicles, and in software, we effectively drive the electric vehicles you might consider on those routes. So it's kind of like you bought the 5, 6, 10 EVs that you're considering, and you had them run shadow operations for 3 months or 6 months or a year. And it basically spits out saying, okay, of your 200 vehicles in this fleet, here are the 37 spots where you're ideally suited to go electric, where the electric vehicle will do the job and where it will save you money. And here's the climate change benefit of it. It really makes that extremely simple, and it ranks it by highest savings to lowest savings. So you can easily cut the line where you want. So that's number one. Again, whether it's Geotab or not, your telematics system should be able to identify where in your current fleet you're ideally suited to go electric. The second is, does my telematics system provide me the basic electric vehicle driving, and really I want to stress, and charging data I need? And this is one of the biggest mistakes. So I've been working in electric vehicles for 15 years. I've been working in electric vehicle telematics for about 10. The biggest single thing that I've seen fleet managers hit again and again, and really trying to help them avoid hitting it, is thinking about telematics for electric vehicles the same way that they think about telematics for petrol and diesel. And the big difference is, in petrol and diesel, there's a lot of focus on maintenance and scheduled maintenance, but not a lot on fueling, naturally, because the fueling event is pretty quick and fueling stations are pretty widespread. In electric vehicles, there isn't very much maintenance. There's substantially less maintenance to consider, manage, or schedule or deal with, but there's a lot more focus and need around the charging data. And so when you think about telematics for electric vehicles, it's extremely important that the telematics system provides you both visibility into when that vehicle is driving. So where is it? What's the current state of charge? All that kind of performance data. But really and it really is unique to EVs, you really need rich data around the charging information. So, at a basic level, it's not just where are my vehicles and what's their current state of charge. That little lightning bolt's really important. Like that little lightning bolt shows that vehicle is currently charging at this moment, and it's showing you the real-time state of charge. And so you can see it tracking up as it's charging. But then also you need the charging report that says, where did I charge? What was my starting state of charge? What was my ending state of charge? And how much energy did I pull? And that gets important in a number of things, especially when you're trying to understand what is my total cost to operate this vehicle, and what are my impacts on the facility load? And so the number one barrier and concern we heard people express was related to charging infrastructure and charging cost. In many cases, fleet managers can get away with less infrastructure than they originally expect, but you need good data to make that decision. And this is the kind of data that you need. Third, does my telematics system expand my charging infrastructure and make it smarter? And so this is really key. And I'm actually going to show you the same slide that I showed you a second ago, basically, that same charging report. One of the ways that we're finding fleet managers are being able to very efficiently expand their charging infrastructure using telematics is for the employees that can charge at home. Not everyone can charge at home. Not everyone has a setup at home that lends itself well to charging. But within most fleets, there are some employees that take their vehicles home and can very easily connect their vehicle when at home. So what we do with the vehicle telematics side is, because we actually measure on the vehicle side every time it charges, how much energy it pulls, when it pulls. We can even get power data. And so we can create automatic reports that at the end of a month say, okay, you have to pay Joanna these many euros for the charging she did at home. It's an extremely easy and efficient way for the employees that can take their vehicle home just to reimburse them for the electricity that they're using to fill up their vehicle at home. And that can dramatically reduce the charging load at your depot, at your office, in a very cost-effective way. It's very common that fleets will add a little bit extra onto it. So if the calculation is 15 euros of electricity, they'll put it as 18 euros just to round up and as a thank you. It's a very cost-effective way for everyone involved. The second is, in cases where if they're not a perk vehicle, they're not taken home, the employee can't easily charge at home. These are just two examples of ways that you should expect your vehicle telematics system to help you with charging infrastructure. And they're two different setups. So one is EV Charge Assurance. EV Charge Assurance, this is something we just launched last month. This is a free marketplace add-in that people put into their My Geotab database. And what it is if you have a depot, it monitors all the vehicles at that depot at this moment. And it tells you, are any of these not going to be full by the time you need them full? So in most cases, this is overnight charging for last mile delivery as an example. All vehicles must be fully charged by 6 in the morning. This will tell them, okay, you've got 40 vehicles at this depot at this instant. Here are the 4 that you need to do something about because they're either not charging or their charging stopped. They're not going to get up to 100%. You need to repack. So that's EV Charge Assurance. And you can also run that same thing in the middle of the day. I need all the vehicles to be charged by 3 p.m. and I want to make sure I know which ones something needs to happen to make sure that vehicle is fully charged for its end of day shift. And so really easy, again, because it's vehicle side and you've got the devices deployed across all the vehicles, you get a single view, a single pane of glass, and it basically can filter out the noise and just show you what are the vehicles at this depot right now that I have to take action on. The second is charge management integration. This is a different way that vehicle telematics can make your charging system smarter. And so the EV Charge Assurance doesn't need network charging stations. Charge management integrations do. And so this is where we provide vehicle side data, so vehicle state of charge and that kind of information into the charge management system. Because frequently when you have a lot of charging happen at one building, you need to slow down or stop some charging. But you don't want to slow down or stop the vehicle that really needs the energy. And there's other vehicles that might have a lot of flexibility. They only need a couple kilowatt hours and they have 5-6 hours. And so there's a lot of flex. And so you want to be able to throttle this vehicle's charging, but not throttle this vehicle's. To do that, you need to know which one has flexibility and which one doesn't. And that's where Geotab integrates with leading charging station providers to actually provide that smarter, smart charging experience where it actually knows which vehicles it can throttle and can't. The importance for the fleet is you need to make sure that vehicle is fully charged by the start of its shift. It needs to be ready. It needs to be operational. And so the load management system can't sacrifice your fleet efficiency and operations. And that's where the vehicle side telematics integration can help. 4th out of 5, we're just about done. Can my telematics system be customized for my fleet's specific EV needs? So within Geotab, we're working with hundreds of fleets around the world that are electrifying. And so we have many thousands of fleets we work with, and there's hundreds and now approaching thousands that are starting their electrification journey. There's a common set of needs and issues that all fleets need, but we are continuing to learn new cases, and the ability of the system, whether it's Geotab or not, to be flexible and customizable to your needs is really important. And so within Geotab, one of the ways that we do try and make sure that customization is present and easy is around our rules engine. And so this is where you can set up automated alerts given a set of conditions. And the reason is because I don't know a fleet manager that's got a bunch of spare time and wants to spend time looking at data portals. What they want to know is when something happened and they need to take action. And that's where our rules engine comes in. And so we have prepackaged, ready to go templates of rules that are extremely common. And you can see some of them. Hey, this vehicle hit 10% state of charge. Flip an email into these people because they need to know. And you can change whether it's 10% and you can change who receives the notifications. Hey, the vehicle came back to depot and it's got a low charge. So, send an email to someone, or you can even, if you have Geotab Go Talk in the cab, you can have a little voice say, welcome back to depot, please remember to go unplug. Those small little prompts to help make sure that people do go unplug and charge. Or the third one, someone's leaving the depot and the vehicle doesn't have enough charge. It's more common than I'd like to admit, but that's where you can email the fleet manager and say, oh, Joanna left depot. She's only got 12% state of charge. She needs to come back. That vehicle's not going to be able to do its day, or EV done charging. But more importantly, we really tried to make it flexible so you can make your own. So I made this morning where I said, hey, I want an alert that if it's below 91% state of charge and I'm entering the London low emission zone, do this action, send this email to this person. Obviously you don't want to send the email to the driver, but there's a lot of options on how you notify. And so that's just an example of both ready to go templates and make your own in a matter of seconds. The fifth, we're just right on where I wanted to be time-wise. I do want to talk about this because this is by far the most important question for your telematics provider, by far. What is your model support today? And more importantly, how can you promise me you'll be able to support the models that are coming tomorrow and that I'm interested in? And this is super important because everything I just talked about relies on the telematics system to actually be able to get that important data out of those electric vehicles. And so if the telematics system doesn't work on those vehicles, nothing that I just said matters. Nothing that I just said works. And so it's really important that whatever telematics system you're looking to use, they have good support today, but they also have a good track record of adding support. There's hundreds, literally hundreds of new electric models that are coming to market over the next 2 years. And so it's really important because supporting electric data is custom by vehicle. And so it's really important that your telematics system can support those because you don't want to be hampered by it. And if you're running EV charge assurance and a system only covers half of your fleet, it's not very useful. You need that complete picture. And so within Geotab, delighted that we have over 100 different makes and models that we support. This is everything from 2 wheels up to 18 wheels. We have a lot of vehicles, electric vehicles we support in the LCV, the light commercial van, the medium duty, the heavy duty. We're the first to cross over that 100 make and model threshold. And we're adding about 20 to 30 per quarter. And this is because we spent a lot of investment this year in 2020, improving our ability to add electric models quickly. And so now we're able to add 20 to 30 models per quarter. And so really and the link is there for you to see all the makes and models that we add. So we announced this 3 weeks ago, less than 3 weeks ago, that we crossed the 100 mark. We're actually already at 105. So that sort of shows you the pace that 3 weeks later, the 100's already out of date. And that's really important, whether it's Geotab or anyone else. Your telematics provider needs to be able to support electric vehicle models and add them quickly because there is a flood of electric models coming to market and your telematics system has to be able to support them. So again, those are the main concerns. Telematics doesn't solve all of them, but it can either fully solve some of them or dramatically reduce the risk associated with some others. And so that is really, when I got this survey result and understood what people are viewing as the main barriers, it made me really happy because I'm like, okay, a chunk of these we can solve with telematics very easily, and we already are solving with telematics. So the main takeaway is, and again, I've been in electric vehicles for 15 years and EV telematics for about 10. I got into EV telematics because I learned this. I was focusing on building and designing electric vehicles and seeing fleets roll them out, and they were failing again and again and again. It's because they didn't have good data. And it became abundantly clear that you can't go electric at scale without good data. There's just common issues with operating a fleet that are extremely challenging if you don't have good data. So with that, we view it in the 1, 2, 3, the go electric, that's the coaching on where the personal electrification plan, the operating electric vehicles, the data you need, and then the scale electric, really making sure you can manage that charging, which directly ties to the number one concern and barrier. We do have about 5 minutes, and I would love to jump into the Q&A, and I will just stop sharing my screen here so that we can have proper video. Hi, Ella. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, and you?
Good, thanks.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mats, and thank you all for joining us today. So you can feel free to ask your questions and make some comments on the right on the chat sessions. So I have the first question for you from, I hope my pronunciation is good, Dieter Quarter. The question is, can fleets monetize the anonymized data of their vehicles by sharing them with third parties?
So we don't, as a data processor and not a data controller. Our view is, under GDPR, that the fleet is the creator and owner of that data, and so we support that. There's likely opportunities where you can monetize some of that data, possibly to help, in an anonymized format, helping a city figure out where to deploy public charging infrastructure. It could be useful. There's a few cases where anonymized data sets can be quite helpful. Anonymized data sets are also quite helpful for electric utilities like EDF to understand what does that charging load look like, so they can forecast their asset loading. So there is a series of cases where anonymized data set can be really helpful. But again, like that would be more to the fleet to their side.
Great, thanks. The second question is from Dieter too. Is automated home charging reimbursements, does that mean you do not need a connected wall box anymore?
Dieter, that's exactly right. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest benefits is that if you just have a cord set that comes with the car, you just plug in a regular outlet and that's fine. There's no networking required on the infrastructure side for the home reimbursement because we're measuring vehicle side, we're getting all the charge events, we automatically filter based on home zone. And so, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That is the biggest benefit. So you get a complete view from a fleet management perspective, but also you just can use your cord set and it meets everything you need.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one last question, Daniel.
Yeah.
The question is for telematics, why is supporting electric vehicles more difficult than combustion vehicles?
Perfect. Yeah. So, and to Axel's question, yes, we will send you the slide deck after. Yeah. So, Ella, I'm glad you asked. So that is extremely important. And so that most telematics systems rely on OBD requirements that are based on emissions laws. And so because electric vehicles don't have tailpipes, none of those laws apply. And so the standard data is all different by vehicle. And so that is extremely important. And so even the concept about OBD ports. So OBD ports are required for emissions laws, but if you have a Tesla Model 3, there is no OBD port because none of those rules apply. And so when you talk about telematics, it's extremely important when it's electric vehicles that the telematics provider knows how to get those EV signals because everything is non-standard. There is not a regulation that says data must show up like this. And so in our case, when you clip in a Go device, it needs to figure out which vehicle it's in and then figure out, okay, this is how I listen to this vehicle. And everything is non-standard. And that's why that number 5 question is so important because the telematics provider has to make major investments. These aren't small investments, major investments to be able to support the breadth of electric models that fleet managers want.
Okay, thank you, Matt, for this interesting presentation. Thank you, Ella, for to having so moderated the Q&A. So by the way, if you want to connect your EV fleets or if you want more information about Geotab, don't hesitate to contact Matt or Ella by private video chat meetings, or you can meet Geotab representative at their virtual booth in the village. So now stay with us because we start now the networking break session. So as you can imagine, it's a great opportunity for networking. That's also the goal of this event. So you can just click on networking and start different networking sessions with different participants. Thank you for your attending and see you later and enjoy the summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.